Slowhands Rock Talk Show.
Sounds good.
Okay, but Dennis, thank you so much for making a little bit of time out of your day, out of the recording studio, the very warm recording studio, to come on to the podcast, speak to myself and my co-host Gav here.
Nice to meet you, Dennis.
With regard to music. We'll talk about music, we'll talk about your career and everything else that fits in between. But I was going to ask, how are you actually doing? Today's episode is sponsored by Drumport. Drumport are known as a distributor for high-quality musical instruments, including their innovative Stomp Tech product line. A must-have for all musicians looking to expand their sound whilst keeping full control of it. I have mine here. Make sure you check out Drumport at www.drumport.de and get your own today. Now back to the video.
I'm doing fine. Yeah, I've been very busy, but I've been dragged in to do this. An old friend of mine, Mickey Gegas from the Cockney Rejects from back in the late 70s in Canning Town at the Bridge House and around West Ham. And you know, the Cockney Rejects are always one of the well-known punk bands of the early 80s.
Yep.
And he's put a new band together called the Punch Drunk Saints, and I helped him over the last few months record the album. Yep. And so that's why I've been in the rehearsal just now. That's why I'm soaking wet. Basically, I'm just doing some guitar stuff with him, some backing vocals, which we put on the album because he's writing now some completely different material from the Cockney Rejects. It's still a bit punky, but it's more into your old-fashioned, rock music, the power chord stuff. And there's some interesting songs on the album, which I helped him record and did some backing vocals on the album. And we did some guitar stuff. So he just said to me, look, tomorrow, Friday, we're at the 100 Club in Oxford Street. And he just said to me, I'd really like you to join me on stage and maybe, do some solos and do some of the stuff he did on the album. Yeah. Because he's the only guitarist. So it's basically a three-piece with a vocalist. So some of the stuff we put on the album does need two guitars. Hence, I come along. So that's what we've been doing for the last 2 hours or so. Just running through some stuff for tomorrow night, and here I am. Tired.
Sounds good. But Dennis, we'll go back to the very beginning, and hopefully ask you we'll ask you some normal questions, some questions you've maybe never been asked before. Yeah. We'll keep it interesting. But where originally were you brought up?
Pardon?
Where were you brought up? Where were you from?
Canning Town in West Ham. Yeah, E16.
And I know, obviously, looking back, your late teens would have been the late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, born in 52. So yeah, I left school at 14 years of age because I never played guitar until I was 16. I didn't buy a guitar until I was 16. So it was more concentrated on football. So all through the two schools from 5 to 11 I played football, and then from 11 till 14 I played football. But I realised that I weren't good enough. I was doing an apprenticeship in the docks because I went straight into the docks in East London when I was 14. So I worked as an apprentice marine engineer. So, times were hard them days, 1962, 63. Money was tight, so we had to get to work as early as we could as possible,
Yeah, but obviously, like when you think back now, some of the bands that came out in the late 60s, early 70s, I mean, classic bands. Who were some of the bands that you discovered for yourself?
Yeah, well, basically, at the age, I remember my nan and granddad telling me when I was about 3. I used to stand at the radiogram that they had in the living room playing a tennis racket, singing along to Lonnie Donegan, Cumberland Gap. I wouldn't remember them days, but apparently I used to at 3 years old. So it was always in my blood. And then, of course, at the age of 11, 12, so the Beatles films come out. So they had a big influence on me, the Beatles and the Stones, mostly the Beatles because they're fantastic songwriting and the harmonies and all things like that, And it teaches you to start playing chords and singing rather than playing a million notes a minute. You go straight into the chord structure of the Beatles and the Stones and you start learning some chords, and that's where I started. I bought a guitar at 16 years of age. So, and once the Bridge House at them days, I used to go up there when I was about 15 and watch a band called Power Pack, and Terry Newman used to play Les Paul standard, and I used to watch it every night. And so I'd pick up things from him, go home, and then at the age of 16, I did buy my first guitar. So I was able to go home, try and remember what I saw him play and just work out bits and notes and things. And that's how I started,
Do you remember? What was the very first album that you ever bought?
Probably Led Zeppelin, but after the Beatles. My first singles was The Who when I was a kid, like Can't Explain, all the early 60s. As I say, the Beatles still had the biggest influence on me. But I probably got into Zeppelin. I remember playing the first album and trying to play along with the notes and everything. And where the record was scratched, I used to put penny coins on the needle to hold it down. To keep the weight on it, so it didn't slip off. And then it was Black Sabbath, Deep Purple. And it wasn't until I started learning properly that I was completely wiped out with Wishbone Ash, because the harmony guitars for me just seemed to sing. It took away from, Richie Blackmore, one guitar, Jimmy Page, one guitar, Mick Box, Uriah Heep, everything, all that stuff, Tony Iommi. It took away all them power chord stuff and one solo. It just opened my ears with the harmony guitars, and I fell in love with it. And that's why every band I've worked with before Maiden, RDB, we always had two guitarists, and we used to copy a lot of Wishbone Ash songs, and that's where I got the love of harmony guitars. Hence, when I went into Iron Maiden, I got the okay from Steve and Dave. They quite liked the idea of, when I first met them, was to, they've seen me play with RDB. They saw us doing the Doobie Brothers and Wishbone Ash songs, Capability Brown, all the stuff with the harmony, technical guitars. And so they said, yeah, go for it. So that's where I was able to take the harmony guitar influence into the rehearsals when I first joined Maiden,
Yeah. Brilliant. Do you remember your first professional concert and who it was and where it was?
What, with my first band?
Or what that you saw, that you went to see, that you bought a ticket for and went and saw and thought, this makes me...
I used to go to the Lyceum every Sunday night. And I remember the Groundhogs, Cherry Red, was it? Yeah. I remember going to see them when I was very young at the Lyceum. And we went to the Oval cricket ground to see Wishbone Ash, Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Focus when we were all teenagers, But I thought you were talking about my first gig, because I was 16, 17, and we knew 7 songs. My father was quite a piss taker, and my mum and dad used to drink in a pub in Canning Town called the Ordnance Arms, and she said, "Oh, why don't you come and play down the pub?" We had 7 songs, and we built our own PA out of chipboard and 2 12-inch speakers, one cabinet aside, and it was absolute crap. And we had a little amp, and all through the show, we got up there. There was 4 of us. I think I was the eldest at 16, then 15, and Linda Lewis's brother, Keith Fredericks, Linda Lewis's younger brother. And then we played these 5 or 6 songs that we had, and the mic was whistling all the time.
Yeah.
Feedback, it was just horrendous. And so we had a break because we only had six songs or whatever. And I went round the other bar to speak to my mum and dad, and I said, "Man, what do you think, Mum?" She said, "Oh, it's lovely, boy." She was crap. She said, "It should say anything." She went, "Oh, it's lovely, boy. Sounds really good. Go and ask your dad." And my dad, I went up with him. I said, he had a cigar, a pint of bitter, and, "All right, Dad, you?" I went, "What do you think, Dad?" He went, "It's all right. Sack the bloke on the whistle." I just turned around, just walked off. I thought, yeah, I'm good at that. I'm used to that anyway. For the old man. It was sack the bloke on the whistle. I was 16 years of age. So yeah, that's what I thought you made me first show. It was fun. It was funny.
That's love.
Yeah.
Yeah, but your first band, Remus Down Boulevard, they toured throughout in the 70s. They supported Rory Gallagher's Status Quo.
Yeah.
Rory Gallagher's one of my favourite guitarists. What was he like to meet? And
the thing was, unfortunately, RDB didn't support Rory. We just did some tours all over Europe and Scandinavia with Quo. But we also did some shows with a band called Nuts. It was Quarry Management, which was Colin Johnson, who managed Quo and Rory Gallagher,
right?
And it was Dave, who was in RDB, the other guitarist and singer. He supported Rory later on after RDB split up, but it was only Quo we went out with, and that was a big learning moment for us, because it was like we grew up overnight. It was incredible, because we thought we were doing really well. Marquee, sold out at the Marquee in Wardour Street, the ground at Fulham Palace Road, all the London pubs that you could play, we played. Yeah. And then we come away from the Marquee, and then Colin Johnson told our manager, Ron Popham, he said, "I want them on tour with Quo." And we went from playing to 200, 300 people. The next night we were in, I think, Holland or Germany or France, wherever it was, 80,000, 70,000. It was just immense, and incredible learning period for us to grow up and become sort of like proper music, playing the same songs but just to a massive bigger crowd. We had so much help from Quo and from the road crew and everything.
When you think back to that time period, does it feel like yesterday? Does it feel like a long time ago?
Mate, I don't know where the years have gone. You've just hit the nail right on the head. I never realised after Iron Maiden, I put Lionheart together, and we tried the best. We did the first album in LA, but it was in 1990 that I ended up joining forces with Tino and Chris Troy Brothers in Praying Mantis. And when that come to an end, I was actually with them for 15 years. And it didn't seem like it felt like it was only a few years.
Yeah.
It was amazing, and even now I'm coming up to 73. And even now, when I look back at 1984, look back at 1979, rehearsing in Hollywood studios with Steve and Dave Murray without Clive, because they didn't have a drummer. So it's like all them times, I just feel like that was just like the other year, a few years ago. I wouldn't have thought it was like 50 years or whatever it was ago. It's crazy.
And when in 1979, when Steve asked you to join Iron Maiden, were you aware of Iron Maiden and Steve in the band? And was there an audition? What was the process for joining?
No, it was complete out of the blue. We were resident at the Bridge House on a Sunday and Monday night, 2 nights a week, with RDB. And we were there for years. And every Sunday, these 2 guys used to come in, but they were always late. They always used to come in about 10 o'clock for the last hour, whether or not they were rehearsing or whatever they do. But they always come in a little bit after, round about just before the break, and I never spoke to them. I just used to sort of wave. Both had leather jackets on, one long blonde hair, one long black hair, But the guy in the black hair had a West Ham scarf on. So it related us to West Ham because we're both crazy at West Ham. And they used to come in. Well, it was like, never knew who they were. And we used to play every Sunday, so I took no notice of actually who they were, never spoke to them. And I was coming home on a Friday night, and I jumped on a bus, and I sat next to Lorraine, which was Steve Harris's girlfriend. And she said, "You're Dennis, aren't you? You play at the Bridge House?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Steve, my boyfriend, plays with Iron Maiden. I've never heard of them. I knew they were residency at the Ruskin Arms because the two brother-in-laws, Terry Murphy and Joe Lucy, had both pubs. But I never had any reason to go over to the Ruskin because I was always playing with us." Yeah. And then she said, "Can you write your address down?" So I wrote my address down because we didn't have phones in them days. And I get a telegram a week later from the post office. Dennis Stratton, RE Rod Smallwood, please call this number regarding Iron Maiden. And so I went round the phone box, spoke to Rod, and he said, the boys have seen you play, and we've just signed a deal with EMI. Excuse me. Anyway, so we just signed a deal with EMI. It's quite a good deal, album deal, and we're looking for you, maybe interested in joining the band. Can you go to the Ship at Wardour Street, which is an old haunt for us because the marquee was about 5 doors away. We used to meet in the Ship, and I got the bus down there in the train and walked into the Ship, and there was Steve and Dave sitting there, and I went, "Oh, wow, it's you two." I never spoke. We only met in the Bridge House and waved. So he sat down. He went, "So you didn't know it was us two then?" I went, "No." I said, "I only got the West Ham scarf." I said, "Never really spoke to you in the Bridge House." And they went, "Oh, right." Well, then they told me the whole setup, which is the EMI thing. But then, of course, then they told me that they didn't have a band because they got rid of the drummer, they got rid of the guitarist, and they were just left with the singer. And I said, "This is strange." But then I realised, because when record companies or promotion companies or whatever, if they don't like certain things that go on in the band, they will tell you, and then you have to replace the members. And apparently they weren't good enough. And Steve and Dave just said, well, Dave just sits there with a big smile on his face. He don't actually say anything like that. And Steve done all the talking, and he just said to me, "Look, we've seen you play at the Bridge House. Really impressed, and you've got a great voice." I said, "Thank you." And he said, "There's the tapes. Give it a listen." There's a couple of cassettes there. I think it was the Soundhouse tapes. And I went home, and first thing that I noticed was the one guitar, rhythm guitar, quite a rough, punky sound. Not recorded very well, but you got an idea of the power and the speed of their songs. And so, of course, the first thing that pinged in my ears was, wow, there's one guitar there, there's loads of room for harmony guitars, there's loads of room for, different riffs and all that. So I run through some of the songs, and a couple of days later, I went over to Hollywood Studios in North London, and we sat down. I said, "Look, I've learned these songs." I said, "But I need to run something past you," and which I told them about they went, we've already heard the stuff you do with Dave, all the Wishbone Ash stuff. We're open to anything that you want to try and do with the songs. And that's what I did. It sort of like made the songs sound wider and bigger production. And when you got different guitars, different things going on with riffs and harmonies, and slowly I learned about 5 or 6 songs, and we went in, and I was mucking about with Dave, just showing him. I think we were doing Rothschild, or we were doing Prowler, and all the and all little harmony licks and all that. They went, "Oh, I like that." So we started doing that, and it sort of put a new light on all the songs that they've recorded with this one guitar rhythm. Took away a bit of the punky edge, and also adding the harmony vocal made it a little bit more interesting as well. And it was only after about a week, I was looking at this drum kit for about 4 or 5 days, and I said, "You haven't got a drummer then either?" And they went, "No." I said, well, I do know a couple of drummers. I took one drummer down, but he couldn't handle the volume. And then I said, look, I do know another drummer who lives local near Wanstead Flats. And they said, we'll bring him down. So I went round Clive's house. He lived near a pub called the Golden Hind over at Wanstead Flats. We all used to sit outside in the summer. He lived round the corner. And so I got hold of Clive and I said, I shouldn't do this, but I'll give you these tapes. So if you come with me tomorrow, have a listen to them and get a bit familiar with a couple of the songs, and you got a bit of an edge in case they've had other drummers turn up. I weren't there, but apparently the drummers weren't good enough. And basically, me and Clive drove down in the car, and I had a cassette player on in the car, and he was listening to the songs there. And so when we got there, we run through 2 or 3 songs, and Steve said, yeah, it's starting to come together. Sounds really good. So that's how we formed the 4 of us. And then I think Deanna turned up a couple of weeks later once we'd got 6, 7, 8 songs run through, add in some of the harmony guitars, add in some of the riffs that we did. And then, of course, he come down and sang a few songs. And then that was that. And then we got on to the next half of the songs, which got a little bit more complicated with Phantom of the Opera. But that sort of thing I get excited about because it's like it tells a story and it's like all different time changes. So I was able to do lots with that, to add highs and lows and the harmony stuff. So that's how it all come together.
It's funny that before you were saying how time just flies. And myself and Gav, we saw Iron Maiden last week. They're obviously on tour celebrating 50 years. And you think 50 years, it sounds like a long time, but as you say, it probably goes by very quickly. But funnily enough, some of the songs that they're playing that are still fan favourites are from the very first album. Songs like Phantom of the Opera, Iron Maiden, Prowler, Running Free. Yeah. It's when you listen to the album, it maybe sounds a little bit dated with regard to sonically how it sounds, but the songs themselves sound just as good today as they did back then.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And also, because at the time, you've got to remember that when I first joined the band, we hadn't recorded the first album yet, but we were actually being pushed to go out on this Metal for Mothers tour, which meant that we'd be headlining. So you need an hour and a half set.
Yeah.
Praying Mantis was supporting them. That's before I even knew them. I got introduced to them on that tour. So, of course, we're in the rehearsal room and Steve brings down all these other cassettes, which has basically got both albums on these cassettes. So we were adding stuff. We didn't actually have Killers written. We wrote that basically a little bit later. But all the other stuff, the stuff that they've been playing live when they've been touring around the UK, they had to play when they were, in the old Green Goddess, is that they had to play a good hour and a half to do a headlining set, whether it was a pub, club, or whatever, So I can't remember all the songs, but we had all of Killers on the cassettes, apart from Killer's song. We had all the first album, and then we had stuff like Twilight Zone, I've Got the Fire, we had The Ides of March. There was about, I'd say, 30 songs on these cassettes. And I said to Steve, he said, also EMI are pushing us to do the first album. So I said to Steve, have you got your mindset on what's going on the first album? He said, yep. He said, it's got to be these because we're going to hold these back for the second album. But again, we still had to rehearse them so that we had an hour and a half's playing time. And that's how we worked. It was basically, unbeknown to me, it's basically pre-production. We're pre-production for both albums. Yeah. He already picked the favourites that he wanted for the first album, keeping back his favourites for the second album. Because a couple of times he went, I want to move that to that, move that to that. No, and I'm going to put that there. And so basically you've got 2 albums and then you've got a few extras that weren't on both albums. They weren't on. So then we start rehearsing the hour and a half set for Metal for Mothers. So we rehearsed the set. Then halfway through the tour, the record company says, right, studio's booked. Need to stop the tour, go in and do the album. So of course, now we've played these songs for the last 4 or 5 weeks. So they're all sounding fantastic. So it didn't take long to do the album because it was straight in power. And then I stayed behind doing some harmony guitar stuff, some harmony vocals. We didn't use them all, but they were there if they needed them. And everything was done very quickly. And so back out on the Metal for Mothers tour. So there we are playing the hour and a half set again. So when we finished the Metal for Mothers tour, basically with pre-production of Killers and the first album's recorded. So the next minute, we've got all these songs we're playing. Then we go, all right, then the record company says, right, you're going to support Judas Priest. So the set now is back to 45 minutes. So then you've got the joy of picking out the best songs from both albums.
Yeah.
Even though Killers wasn't recorded, you've got the best songs. So Rothschild, you've got Killers, so we moved collaboration songs all together to make a 45-minute Killer set, which we did on the Priest tour. And that's the same set we did on the Kiss tour. So, we didn't need that hour and a half anymore because we became the support band for Priest, support band for Kiss. And then, of course, when we come back, we had a bit of the fallout and then I wasn't needed. So, but all the work had been done for Killers. So it was quite handy for Adrian to come in and just pick up where I left off. So all the work was done, yeah.
Yeah. So obviously after that, you left Maiden. Do you still keep in touch with the Maiden guys?
Yeah, I speak to Steve all the time, mostly about shit West Ham football. But it's the way it is being a West Ham supporter, with a life full of misery. But, I was with Steve in Finland a couple of weeks ago, and Simon, who's doing a fantastic job. Love Simon. I was out in Helsinki with him when I saw the show with the Crazy Finns. And then we came back. I had a week at home. I was playing in the UK around London and the Essex way. And then we went to the London Stadium the other Saturday, met up with them again, and something to eat, a drink, and everything. But the show at the London Stadium, I was blown away. The sound was just unbelievable. I've been to many Doningtons and many Reading festivals and concerts at the O2. But for a metal band, every rock band, metal band at the London Stadium, out open air, I've never heard a sound like it. The separation of the guitars was perfect. The power chord, the way they rung out, the guitars, they were singing, and Bruce's voice was sounding great. And we went back afterwards to see Steve, and he came out and we had a cuddle, and I said to him, well, Steve, that's the best sound I've ever heard. And I spoke to him the next day on the phone, and I said, honestly, I'm still buzzing. I said, I've heard them so many times at the O2, Donington, Vegas, everywhere around the world I've seen Maiden, but the sound at the London Stadium was the best I've ever heard.
Yeah, I'd said to Gav just before we started recording, before you came on, that we were talking about seeing them last week, and I don't know how many times we've seen them over the last 20-something years, but they actually, I did say to you, I think that was the best I've seen them. They sounded great. Visually, it was the best it's ever looked.
Yeah.
But there was something, I don't know what it was, I felt there was something that was almost like just a little bit more energy than normal, almost like they were having fun, just loving it.
Yeah, I think the songs have a lot to do with it as well. I'm not a lover of Seventh Son or the Seventh Son because I think it just goes off a little bit, and with the guitars dual, they're fighting against one another with different tuning. It just grates me, being a guitarist. I can't stand all the awkward notes that are being played, but I find it too long because The Ancient Mariner's a great song, but it has dynamics, it's theatre, the sound effects and everything else. But the Seventh Son, they could have put 3 more songs in that place from the first 2 albums, and that set would have wiped the floor with anything in the world. And also, I think the reason why they were sounding great is because I've seen them many times with the Final Frontier, the Book of Souls.
Yeah.
It just fell a little bit flat because I think it was some of the songs that suffered. I think some of the songs weren't as good as what they're used to playing and what they've written before. Yeah. A little bit dull, a little bit boring, I don't know. But I think when you see them at Donington, you see them at the O2, wherever in the world you see them, the minute they do things like Iron Maiden, the minute they do anything that's from their first two albums, the crowd just go up. Same as like, I thought it was strange Phantom because Steve's always speed, fast, silent, fast. And then I sat next to him in a bar in Helsinki, Simon and Steve, and I can't believe it. I said, you played Phantom slower. I said, I didn't think it was possible for you to play a song slowly. It is a little bit slower, but it works, you know. It works.
But after Iron Maiden, you already mentioned this before, Lionheart, Praying Mantis, you recorded 5-6 albums with them, especially in the 90s. Recorded a lot of albums. Do you like working in the recording studio?
Except when it's hot.
I don't mind. The only good thing about all the albums with Lionheart, apart from the first album, because we were in LA, we had to be in the studio in Sound City with Kevin Beamish. But all the albums I've done with Lionheart since, and all the albums I've done with Praying Mantis, apart from the very first one we did at Boundary Road Studios in London by Blackfriars Bridge. I'm lucky enough to be able to say we did it at home on basically Logic, what they call Pro Tools. We were able to afford to install in Tino's house, in Steve's house in Lionheart, Steve Mann's house in Lionheart, in Hanover, in Germany. We were able to have the joy of having our own studio, and it makes so much difference. Because whereas we did the Maiden album, any recording stuff I've always done, I've always sat in the control room, not in the studio. The equipment might be in the studio where it's all mic'd up, but I like to be by the desk with a small monitor so we can listen and play and talk rather than being isolated. So the good thing about the 6-7 albums I did with Praying Mantis were done at Tino's place, where we were able to sit there and talk it over and just have, the outboard stuff here, we interface with for your solo sound, and play away and talk, and then use a little booth for the vocals. Yeah. The same thing goes for Lionheart. When we did the Lionheart album, we did it at home, 2017, and then when we did the next album, which was Reality of Miracles, we did it at home because it was lockdown, 2020. So we learned a new way of working together, where Steve is in Hanover at the controls, we're all at home, and we're all on laptops, and we're able to. I'm not so good at IT. I can guarantee you that's why Lee was setting all this up. It will probably blow up, or a fuse will pop. So the minute I touch it. So I have a guy in Saffron Walden here, Stacey Dunn, who's just done 5 years at music technology, and he is fantastic. He's got all the stuff around his house. It's all spectrum, and I gave him the songs. I sit at home on Cubase and play away. Steve, Dennis, play the solos for these 2 songs. I'm sending them to you now. I listen to them. Wow. So then I start working on harmony guitars. So when I get to Stacey's, it's already done. It's already prepared. All I've got to do is plug in, blast away. He records the solos, sends them straight back to Steve. And the same with the vocals. So we found on the Reality of Miracles in 2020, where we couldn't even go outside the door, out of the pub, and stop. And we found a way of working, and it worked really well. So when we did the last album, which The Grace of a Dragonfly, Steve said, look, we've done it before. Let's just repeat the same process. Lee was at his house singing. Everything worked really well. And for the first time, the journalists have been talking about the great production that Steve done on this album. What a great production, and the sound, and that all comes from just doing it at home, sending it to Steve, and Steve is just Mr. Wonder Kid for the mixing. Mick, he's just got an ear and it's amazing. So that's what we got used to. So I've been quite lucky to be able to stand. Did it with Maiden, the first album. The engineer stayed behind, and we got chatting. Well, what about something like that? We didn't want to do too much because you end up don't want to change the sound of the band. Just adding things that might make a bit of a dynamic impact and see if it worked. So it gave us a bit of free recording time, free studio time, and that's what we did. So you're talking to one another all the time. It's quite nice, And
I know that in the mid-90s, you formed the original Iron Man with Paul, who's sadly no longer with us.
No, I didn't. No, it's all lies.
Just a very quick message to say thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos, like and leave a comment, let me know what you think of the episode and give me some suggestions on who I should interview in the future. Back to the video. Oh, it's all lies.
Yep, all lies. I have said this on many times. I've said it on every interview I've done in the last 15, 20 years. I've said it on Wikipedia. I've told fans at meet and greets and questions and answers, Q&As. I've told the fans, no way did me and Paul record them albums. It was ridiculous. It was a geezer, a fella we knew, who lived near the Cart and Horses. I was running the pub, the Cart and Horses pub, and he used to come in there. I can't even mention his name because it makes me feel anger. And so he said to me, I've got a proposition for you. When's your next tour of Japan with Praying Mantis? I said, about 6 months. We'll probably be working on a new album. He said, right, I want to get you in the studio and I want you to record 6 or 7 songs, doing the vocals, doing the solos, we've got someone doing all the backing tracks and everything else, the drums. I went, yeah, okay. So we went to 3 or 4 different studios, and he said, I want to do a solo project for you, like a solo album. I went, oh, okay, sounds good. I spoke to Pony Canyon in Tokyo. They were fine, as long as it didn't interfere with Praying Mantis. And then I recorded all these songs, vocals, done all the guitar stuff, and then I'm in the Cart and Horses pub working as I used to do when I run the pub. I get a phone call from Tokyo. What is going on with this original Iron Man with Paul Di'Anno? And I said, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, right, okay.
And it turns out that the guy had done a dirty on me, pissed off with all the recordings, put Paul in the studio, and I still don't know to this day whether he actually told Paul what he was doing. Someone who spoke to Paul about it before he passed said they think he never knew. So I definitely didn't know, and I said to the record company, I've no idea what you're talking about. And they sent me some copies of this original Iron Man. First of all, I looked at it and I just felt so embarrassed because to walk around with 2 tin helmets on like Ned Kelly, it was just embarrassing. And basically, I wanted to kill the guy. Anger took over. No money, nothing. So I'll tell this story truthfully to everyone who asks me. Even when people bring the CD cover down for me to sign, I said I'll sign it, but I didn't do this album. It's not. So I'll make sure I tell everyone.
Right.
And only a couple of weeks ago on Facebook, a guy, Marco Gamba, a good friend of mine in Italy that does a lot of stuff with Maiden, he also comes to see my shows in Italy when I'm there. He sent me these photographs on WhatsApp. I thought you better see this. And they're re-releasing the 2 albums of the original Iron Man.
Right.
They're re-releasing it again. So only a few weeks ago, I took a Photoshop copy of both albums and I put it on my social medias, Instagram, Facebook, whatever you want to call them. and I put it on. People, before you buy this album, please believe me, I did not record these albums with Paul Di'Anno. I've told many a time, please do not buy this album because it is not me and Paul. It's just someone put all the songs together and they sold it on a bootleg and they made a lot of money out of it.
Well, that's cleared that up anyway. But Dennis, I've got a question. And you've played in lots of different bands across your career, lots of different musicians. And there's not a right or a wrong answer to this one, but in your opinion, what makes a band work? And not in terms of success, but what makes a band work? Does a band need a band leader, someone steering the ship that everybody else in the band is trusting to get behind and steer it? Or does it need to be equally split across the band? Or does it depend on who the musicians are?
Well, to be honest, it's a hard question for me to answer. The reason being is because I see your point coming from Steve, being the boss. He always had a vision. He knew what he wanted, and they'd done all the groundwork by doing the rounds in the country in the old Green Goddess in the van and building up a fan base, which is why the first album went straight in because of the advanced orders, because they'd done their homework and they'd done their groundwork by getting everyone on board on their fan base, the Iron Maiden fan base.
Yeah.
Nowadays, as you move forward, like I would say, there's no justice on any kind of leadership because, you know, I spent, as I said, we did the Lionheart that closed down, not closed down. We still met and recorded, but we didn't. After the first album came out in '84, we just, by CBS, we were just left to rot, and all these promises of tours just didn't happen. So by 1980, 87, 88, the band sort of like everyone's playing with different people. Steve and Rocky was with Schenker, and I was then starting off playing with Praying Mantis in 1990.
Yeah.
Tino was always a bit of the leader of Praying Mantis because he formed the band with his brother. But when you look at the progression that you do, and you look at the Praying Mantis albums, and then you look at the last three Lionheart albums, there's no really telling what the best chemistry is for a band, whether it's the leadership. I would always say there's no excuse. Good songs will always come through. Really good songs will always make the mark, but that's not true either, because we've had many fantastic albums with Praying Mantis, and that didn't get us anywhere. And then we've had the last three albums from Lionheart have been fantastic, and that's not got us anywhere. With the way the music industry is now, with downloads, streaming, you don't earn a penny. So, you know, Bruce said the same thing. Bruce Dickinson said the same thing. How do you expect to see your favourite band touring when you don't buy their album? You know, download it for $2 bob, and then what? Then what are you going to do? I'll go play your album indoors and don't go and see them because they can't afford a van or a PA or whatever. It's to ask that question about the leadership of the band. You know, don't get me wrong. There's a fantastic lot of new bands coming out now, thanks to Planet Rock and things like that, that are playing these new outfits. But I've got to admit, there are, and I'll take this hand on heart, there are many bands out there that I feel are absolutely dreadful. Yeah, they're still getting recognition and they're still getting on bills on festivals or whatever. And so someone, whether it's management, record company or promotion company, someone is pulling the strings, and I don't know. But to ask me about a leadership of a band, I can't see any leader of a band making a big impact. I think that it's got to be the whole band. And now, I think an album with so many good songs on should really portray how good the band are. It don't work like that anymore. You know, when we got The Grace of a Dragonfly come out, the first time in my life I've heard journalists say, as I said earlier, I've heard journalists say the lyrics, the songs, the harmonies, the production, everything about the album. They've actually listened to the whole album, not just one or two songs.
Yeah.
And to get 9 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 5 stars all through across the board, and then you got nothing to show for it. It's just criminal, and it's the way the music business is now with streaming and downloads. So the answer to your question is impossible for me to answer, but I can't see one person in a band, like, you know, I know Steve's the boss, but you don't really see that coming from Metallica. You've got there's a joint venture there with who speaks up and who does this and who does that. So I don't know if a leadership would make any difference now. I don't know, you know, the way it is.
So you're in the studio at the moment. You've got your gig tomorrow night. What else are you up to at the moment, Dennis? What's the rest of your plans for 2025?
Well, we're going back out on tour. We're going to hopefully do a new Lionheart album, but that's because we love it. We don't create an income with Lionheart. It's for the love of the band. We still have to earn a living to pay rent and whatever and eat. So I still work all the time in the UK, whether or not it's with friends doing a covers band or whether it's a duo, whatever, we still earn good money. But one of the favourite bands I've been working with for many, many years now is Maiden United, which is the acoustic things. And it's such a difference. It's like a breath of fresh air for me. I can't play an acoustic guitar. I'm absolutely useless. But I do have a go. It's a bit awkward for me, and I do admit that at the live shows when I mess up. It's impossible to do the solos you do on electric, but we get around. But ever since joining Joey Brewers and Damien Wilson, who was singing with us at the time, you know, the other guitarist is Rue Jolly from Within Temptation. And because it's Maiden United, every time we go out, there's always different members joining us. We have different singers, different guitarists come. But last year, we did quite a big tour in Europe. We went to countries that Maiden United had not played before. And we got this guitarist from Portugal, Ricardo. He's fantastic. And we used different vocalists. And so what happened at the end of last year was that we finished that tour in October. And then, of course, we had to move house, but that's another nightmare. And then, we had Christmas off, but then when I come back, I find that Joey's now planned this tour for Maiden United. It started a few months ago in Germany, but we come home. Now there's quite a big gap. And then we go back out at the end of August, September, something like that. And we're covering quite a lot of countries. That I'm looking forward to, but I can't do the whole tour because I still have commitments in the UK where I'm working with other different people. I'm doing this thing with Mickey Geggus, as I say, for the Cockney Rejects, now called Punch Drunk Saints. I'm doing all different things, and I still have my regular work, which basically is me beer tokens. You know, with me and my partner Julia, we've got a nice place. The kids have all grown up, so I still have to earn some kind of a living, and that comes with actual live work. You know, you won't get it from recordings. So this summer, I'm in Greece next week, and then we come back after 2 weeks, and then the tour starts, and hopefully maybe putting some new ideas down for Lionheart while I'm still doing the gigs around the UK. You know, that'd be nice.
Busy man.
That's cool. But Dennis, before we finish up, I always like to ask some fun questions at the end.
Yeah.
So I'll just ask you the questions. You tell me what pops into your head. Okay. Now you've all been in the game a long time. You've played thousands of gigs. You've probably seen thousands of gigs as well. But if you could go back in time, big concert, small concert, anywhere in the world, what is the one concert that you wish that you could have attended?
I wish I could have gone.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Don't know. You throw me. I wish I could have gone to. It's weird because I can't think of one I would have gone to, because if I wanted to go, I would have gone.
I'll put a twist on the question then. See if you could go back and attend one of your own gigs. What one do you think would maybe be fun to go and watch yourself play?
Reading Festival, 1980.
There you go.
Maiden, yeah. I think also it would have been the first show we did with RDB with Quo, because coming from the marquee and then going in front of 60 to 80,000 people, and you know full well the Quo crowds are just lunatics, and especially in Europe, they're so loud. And even before the band goes on, and what stuck in my mind was, we were in the dressing room and the road crew came down and said, "Right, you're on." And as we were walking to the stage, the heart's going, and I've got my guitar, my Les Paul, and I've got my guitar lead plugged into the Les Paul, and I've got the other end of the lead, the jack plug that's going into the amplifier.
Yeah.
Then all the lights went out, and the noise was deafening, stamping, banging, everyone was going potty. And the guy put his torch down on the floor and he said, "Follow me." And he grabbed my hand on the Les Paul neck and he was walking me to the stack, to my Marshall stack. And as we're walking towards it, pitch black, he then shines the torch onto the amp, the 100-watt Marshall.
Yeah.
And I'm like that. I'm working so much, I can't put the jack plug into the hole of the amp, and then I'm like that, and he grabs my hand and guides the jack plug and plugs it in. And I went, bang, and that was fine. It was just like trying to plug it in, pitch black with this 8,000 people behind me. And then as soon as I heard the guitar, the crowd go mental, and then we go into the set, and first song opens. And it was mind-blowing. And so anything like that, I could go back and watch something. But, I think 1980 or the first gig of the Kiss tour, or the one Paul Stanley puts a bucket over my head. So I was in the middle of the solo. Me and Dave used to do this solo bit on our own, like showing up, useless. And I'm playing away, and then it was my birthday. It was Stockholm, 1980, Stockholm, October the 9th. And I'm playing, and all of a sudden the crowd just, I'm thinking, Jesus, I'm doing really well, yeah? Playing my heart out, doing this solo, a bit of shredding there. And all of a sudden, it went dark, and it was Paul Stanley walking on stage with a bucket over my head. And I thought they were cheering me. But no, it was him. But they did take me out for dinner on the night time, him and Gene, with me and Dave Lights. So we went to a lovely restaurant. No cameras allowed because of their no makeup. So it was fantastic. Great birthday.
Brilliant. So speaking of time travel, to stick on the same theme, if you could go back and give your 1980s or 1970s self one piece of advice, what would it be?
See, people have asked me that about the split with Maiden. I was pretty crazy in them days. Drunk a lot. Still drink too much, but drunk a lot. And I'm not sure. I think people say, what you be doing now if you'd stayed with Maiden, or you'd agreed not to listen to the Eagles and agreed to do what you were told by Rod and things like that. And I often say I'd probably be dead, because it was a manic time, and I was a bit crazy at the time, and no drugs, but just lots of drinking and partying. And I think I wouldn't have my children that I've got now. I'd have Carly, but I wouldn't have the other two, Jack and Laura. And I wouldn't be wouldn't have married Fiona, or I wouldn't have married Lorraine. But I wouldn't have been with my partner now, Julian. So it's one of them things where you look at the bright side of it and think, well, at least I'm still alive. I'm enjoying life. I'm still playing, and still got most of my health. And so I think I would have been on a downward spiral if I'd had the party life, right from 1980, I don't know.
And you've recorded and wrote countless songs over the years. What's the one song that is your favourite overall, or do you have one? You might not.
Well, if it's in the Maiden era, it's always been Phantom of the Opera. That was my baby. That's what I got carried away on. But since then, with Lionheart, with Praying Mantis, I've recorded some nice stuff that I wrote myself, and they're on the albums, and not all of them are heavy. Like there's some acoustic guitar stuff and some I'm very proud of. But I think overall, because the first album is so iconic, who knew that when we recorded that it was going to last test of time.
Yep.
But just, I suppose, Phantom has got to be the epic, because it's touched so many people's hearts and still does now after all these years. So it's the biggest, I suppose, the debut album that's stood the test of time, I suppose. So yeah,
it's like asking you to pick your favourite child, isn't it? They're all your babies, all your.
Well, like your favourite guitarist. Well, my favourite guitarists are people that, apart from Steve Lukather or Guthrie Govan, I've got friends like Jeff Whitehorn and some guitarists that I've worked with who are session guys, and they are just out of this world. So, there's lots of guitarists out there probably no one's ever heard of. So, it's one of them things.
You have a favourite album cover? Not your own, anybody, any band over the years that you would have had on your own album?
No, again, not really, no. I'll tell you what I do like, Deep Purple in Rock. That's the one where they're in the mountains, isn't it? Carved in where the presidents were, weren't they? Is that Deep Purple in Rock?
I think it is, yeah.
You got the senators or the presidents in the rock.
Yeah, that's right.
In rock, and it's got the band's faces. I thought that was quite clever. But yeah, I don't think I've got a favourite album cover now.
Here's a question then for you, Dennis. Thousands and thousands of great songs have been written and recorded across the years by different bands, different artists. What's the one song that you wish you could have sat in the recording studio to witness the band record the song?
Desperado by the Eagles.
Right.
And especially the live version, Hell Freezes Over, and them sort of stuff is just mind blowing. Some of the stuff, I could listen to the Eagles all the time. That's what got me in trouble. But their songs are they tell a story.
Yeah.
Everything's a story with them, and they touch you. It's like really emotional. And but yeah, there's stuff there that I even with an orchestra that I could probably think of once we've stopped talking, and it gives you time to think. I could probably ravel off half a dozen songs that especially with an orchestra.
Yeah.
It's one of them things. I love all kinds of music, whether it's soul, jazz. I'm not a lover of punk much, but I don't like thrash metal or death metal. But it's some of the stuff that I sat indoors the other night and watched a live concert of Michael Bolton, and what a voice! And it's live, and it just makes it look so easy. And there's loads of vocalists I've worked with, and they're just fantastic. And but yeah, as I say, I've always wanted to do my own version of Phantom, but whether I will do that in the end, I don't know. But I would love to do one. But it's one of them things, and that would have an orchestra or some kind of cellos or something on it to make it different from the heavy metal version.
Well, last question then for you, Dennis. Now, the answer can change. I'm sure it could change every day. But for today, who is your Mount Rushmore for bands? Who's the 4 bands for yourself, whether it be performance, songwriting, the overall package? Who's the 4 bands that you see as perfection?
Journey, Toto. I love the American stuff. I like the early days of Whitesnake and David Coverdale, just mind blowing.
Yeah.
There's too many, I suppose, and the Eagles. There's too many things that I listen to now as I've got older. Certain songs. Some I play with me and Dave in the duo. There's a song by John Michael Montgomery called "Wrote the Moon," and if you listen to the words of that, it tears you apart, because his wife, girlfriend, or daughter thinks that he can rope the moon because he can do anything.
Yeah.
And it's a fantastic song, and we play it. And we've had people record it from us. They've played it at their funerals. They've played it at different people's funerals. They've played it at their wedding, and it just touches people's hearts. That's why I always love listening to Desperado, because it tells a story. It's one.
I think there's a lot of songs that you don't maybe appreciate when you're younger, but as you get older, they connect with you in a different way. And there's the beauty of music, is that it's different for everyone. Yeah. But that's what keeps it interesting.
Definitely. I've always said this. If I go back to being a kid, like 5 years old, 6 years old, from Canning Town, we didn't have any money, but the whole nan, granddad, and all my uncles and aunts and cousins, we go to Norfolk for 2 weeks in the 6 weeks holiday, and we take about 6 or 8 caravans, and all the family used to have the caravans with all my cousins. And there's a song by Dusty Springfield called "I Just Don't Know What to Do with Myself." Yeah. And every time I hear that song, I'm sitting on the beach and I can hear it on a transistor radio, and we're going back to 1957.
Yep.
Sitting on the beach with a sugar donut, listening to someone who's got a transistor radio over there. I just don't know what to do with myself. Da da da. As soon as that does that, I'm back on that beach.
Yeah.
It's killer. She was on the radio this morning, Dusty Springfield, God bless her. And there was one song she sang, and I remember that being. I remember the Beatles walking home from school, 11, 12 years of age, Hard Day's Night or Help. And I can remember sitting at the cinema watching them films, singing all them songs. Anywhere you hear a Beatles song, you know where you were at that time. And that's the effect with me or with music. No matter where you are, it'll always take you back to what you were doing at that time. Kinks, like the Small Faces, Waterloo Sunset, Lazy Sunday Afternoon. We were over a swimming pool in East London, Lido, open air swimming pool, and someone's got it on the transistor radio. Lazy Sunday Afternoon, got no time to worry. And it just takes you back to where that 6 weeks holiday from school. It's amazing.
Amazing. But on behalf of Gav and myself, Dennis, thank you so much for making a little bit of time.
Lovely chat. No, thank you. Thank you.
It's been nice speaking to you. I'm happy that you enjoyed answering all our weird questions. For anybody watching, you are on social media. Give yourself a follow. Give yourself a follow. Check out the music that's coming out. Get yourself along to any gigs as well that you guys are playing, especially if you're down London way. But I do wish you all the continued success. If you're up in Scotland, give us a shout. We will come along, cheer you on.
Yeah, I'm coming up to Scotland. I'm coming up to Scotland for the August bank holiday. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
There you go.
Are you near Edinburgh?
Yeah.
Right, we're going to be playing. This is a plug for you.
Go for it.
Hold on. I got it. It's called... Got your glasses. Oh, one's my second, viewers. 1 second. I'll be with you. A friend of mine owns a hotel just outside Edinburgh.
Yeah.
And it's called...
Need a drum roll here.
It's called Bernaschi Lodge Hotel in Kemnay. Kemnay. And...
Is that Kemnay? How you pronounce it?
Right, so...
Beneke Lodge Hotel.
Beneke Lodge Hotel.
And what's the date?
August bank holiday. We're there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Brilliant.
And I'm playing with my partner. We're doing all the stuff we do and a couple of Maiden songs. And then there's a band coming. I damn look at my phone again because I can't. There's a band coming from near Edinburgh that is a Maiden tribute band, and I'm going to be playing with them on the Sunday.
Right, we'll try and get ourselves along there, definitely. And
so it's Berneke Bernacay Lodge.
Yeah, that's fine.
Brilliant.
I've got
And
your
it's in,
number.
it's in the town or village of Kemnay, Kemnay.
That's fine. I've got your number, Dennis, so I'll give you a wee-
Yeah, I'll send you all the details.
Of course, definitely. But I wish you all the continued success.
Thank you.
Until we meet up in August. Enjoy the rest of your day, mate.
Really gonna have a pint.
Cheers.